They planted the sign in my front yard early on a Tuesday morning. Bright orange, huge black lettering. Community Enhancement District, HOA Development Area. No warning, no meeting, no vote, no knock on the door. Just a sign shoved into my grass, as if the land underneath it had always belonged to them. What nobody on that board realized was that I had spent the last 11 years quietly preparing for a situation exactly like this. And before it was over, I was going to lock up every dollar they had access to. Before we get into it, tell me where you're watching from. Drop your country in the comments below. My name is Darian Wolf. I bought my home on Crest Haven Circle when the neighborhood was little more than a collection of construction sites, dirt roads, and hopeful blueprints. Back then, there wasn't even an HOA. In fact, I was one of the 12 original homeowners who helped create it. I sat through the planning sessions. I helped write portions of the first governing documents. For nearly 4 years, I attended every meeting without fail. Then work became demanding. Family responsibilities piled up. Little by little, I stopped showing up and let other people take control. Looking back, that was the biggest mistake I made. Years later, a woman named Petra Cowell became president of the HOA. By then, the board was completely different. The people who had built the community were gone. A new group had taken over, bringing new priorities and new ambitions. Petra had spent her career as a city planner. She loved redevelopment projects and had absolutely no patience for what she considered neighborhood imperfections. Tall shrubs, unique mailboxes, vehicles parked along curbs. Anything that didn't fit her vision quickly became a violation. She issued fines constantly. To Petra, citations were as common as handshakes. I stayed out of trouble. My lawn was trimmed. My house was maintained. I followed every rule I knew about. I assumed I was invisible to her. I couldn't have been more wrong. The sign appeared on Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, a surveyor was walking across my front yard carrying a clipboard. I stepped outside and asked what he was measuring. He handed me a business card. "You'll have to speak with the board," he said. Then he walked away. That was the entire explanation. A business card and a brush-off. I called a number, straight to voicemail. I emailed the HOA management company. Automatic response. The following evening, I attended the next board meeting and sat quietly in the back until public comments opened. I wanted someone to explain why part of my property had suddenly been declared community land for a streetscape project valued at more than $230,000. Petra looked directly at me. "Darian, all affected homeowners received certified notification." I told her I had never received anything. She smiled without the slightest concern. "That isn't our responsibility." But that wasn't the most alarming thing she said. A few moments later, she lifted a document into the air and explained that the board had approved a measure reclassifying the first 10 feet of several properties along Crest Haven Circle into a shared visual corridor. The authority came from a bylaw amendment, an amendment adopted 14 months earlier, voted on, approved, implemented, and somehow I had never even seen it. At least, that's what I believed. When I got home, I searched through every piece of mail I had saved over the previous 2 years. Hours later, I found it. Buried inside a pile of advertisements and junk mail was a certified mail notice card from the post office. I remembered seeing it. I had assumed it was promotional garbage and ignored it. I never signed for the letter, never collected it. After 15 days, it had been returned to the sender. Technically, the HOA had provided notice. Technically, I had missed my chance to challenge it. The contractor was scheduled to begin construction in 9 days. Most people would have called neighbors, started an online campaign, written furious emails. I did none of those things. Instead, I called my cousin Renata. She had spent 22 years practicing municipal land use law across 3 states. I explained everything from the sign to the bylaw amendment. She listened carefully without interrupting. When I finished, she stayed silent for several seconds. Then she asked one question. "Read me the exact language regarding the corridor designation." I pulled up the document and read every word. Another long pause followed. Finally, she spoke. "Darren, they overlooked something. The HOA had voted to reclassify the land. But according to her, They had never completed the most important step. They had failed to file an updated subdivision plat with the county. And in our state, any conversion of private residential property into a shared-use corridor required a formal amendment recorded, stamped, and acknowledged by the county assessor before it had any legal effect. The county assessor's approval wasn't optional. Without that filing on record, the reclassification wasn't merely questionable. It was completely unenforceable. Legally speaking, the HOA had no authority to treat my property as part of any shared corridor, which meant the bright orange sign sitting in my front yard carried exactly zero legal weight. But I didn't rush to call Petra. I didn't send threatening emails. I didn't demand an apology. Instead, I waited. I let the contractor arrive. I watched crews unload equipment and mark utility locations. I watched trucks pull in and workers stack materials along the curb. On the first day of construction, Petra walked up and down the street with a clipboard tucked under her arm. She pointed at survey stakes and spoke enthusiastically about decorative paving, upgraded landscaping, new irrigation systems, and modern lighting fixtures. She looked proud, confident, certain that everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee and simply observed. I didn't say a word. Then day 2 arrived. Just after 9 in the morning, a county building inspector pulled up beside the project area. A second inspector arrived shortly afterward. Then a woman wearing a gray blazer stepped out of another vehicle, carrying a leather folder. She introduced herself as a representative from the county assessor's office. Things moved quickly after that. Within 40 minutes, every piece of activity on the project had stopped. Workers stood around waiting for instructions. Equipment sat idle. Conversations became increasingly tense. The entire site was effectively frozen. Less than an hour later, Petra appeared at my front door. She tried to look calm. Her voice remained measured. Her hands told a different story. They wouldn't stop moving. She pointed toward the street. "You called them." I leaned against the doorway. I submitted a routine inquiry regarding the recorded plat status of my property. She stared at me. "That's all." Her jaw tightened. "You just destroyed a $230,000 neighborhood improvement project." I shook my head. "No, your board destroyed it when they forgot to file the required paperwork." For a moment, she looked like she wanted to argue. Several responses crossed her face. None of them came out. Before she could continue, I opened the door fully, stepped inside, and ended the conversation. What happened afterward was worse than a simple delay. The project didn't pause. It unraveled. The contractor had accepted the job under strict deadlines tied to a municipal beautification grant the HOA had secured months earlier. That funding came with conditions. Construction had to begin by a specific date. Certain milestones had to be completed within a fixed timeline. Once the county issued its freeze order, those deadlines became impossible to meet. The clock ran out. The grant was canceled. Just like that, $230,000 disappeared. Not postponed, not suspended, gone entirely. The fallout was immediate. Within days, homeowners began demanding answers. Board meetings became crowded. Questions turned into accusations. 3 board members resigned before the week was over. Petra held on a little longer, about 2 months to be exact. Then she announced a special election and stepped down from her position as president. Most people assumed that would be the end of my involvement. It wasn't. After the new board took office, they contacted me directly. They wanted help understanding the original governing documents, the original bylaws, the same ones I had helped draft years earlier when the community was first created. They asked whether I would attend a few meetings and provide historical context. I agreed, not because I wanted influence, and not because I wanted recognition. I agreed because someone needed to remember why those rules existed in the first place. The truth is, I didn't stop that project out of anger. I wasn't interested in revenge for its own sake. What bothered me was something much simpler. The moment someone places a sign on your property without permission and then tells you that your concerns aren't their problem, they've crossed a line. At that point, the only option left is to make the situation their problem instead. Today, my front yard looks exactly as it did before any of this happened. The grass is the same. The trees are the same. Nothing changed. Every morning when I walk outside to pick up the newspaper, I glance at the patch of lawn where that sign once stood. And every time I do, I'm reminded of something important. Some battles aren't really about getting even. They're about setting the record straight. So let me ask you something. If an HOA tried to take 10 feet of your property and smile while doing it, how would you have handled it? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one.